Hey everybody, welcome back. You look around the streets nowadays and you see signs of wealth everywhere. Brand new cars, extravagant holidays, expensive shops. But over the last year, I've been very fortunate to gain a lot of insight into how people afford these things, average people. And I know for a lot of you guys, this may be a common understanding fact. For a lot of you guys, this may be a lesson as well as it was for me. But this really was something that I was able to learn when I got my job working in a luxury retailer. You quickly realize that most of the people buying this stuff are buying it on finance. Most of the people buying this stuff are people who can't afford it. And even if they can, in often cases they can't afford it outright, which in my opinion, especially for a non-priority item, begs the question whether you can actually afford it at all. But that's just my belief. Now, what I'm trying to say here is, and this is perhaps something which is encouraging, or should be encouraging to a lot more people, most of the wealth that you see around is fake. And I mean this very simply. The people who you see flaunting all of these goods, all of these brand new cars, their wealth isn't real. They don't have wealth. I'll give you an example which stood out to me. You see a lot of these brand new Mercedes cars around, initially it made me feel like a bit of a failure, right? Because you see all of these kids like 21, 22, 25, round about my age, and they'll be driving a brand new Mercedes, right? I drive a 30-year-old Volkswagen Passat. So I'm like, what am I doing wrong in life? So I just went online. I was like, how much is this car? And it's like £30,000, something like that. And I'm like, well, there's no way that people are buying that. Not people that who don't even make that in a year. So you look online and you see there's a very, very attractive financing deal. And now it makes sense why the city is full of these. People couldn't afford them outright. Now, most people's wealth, there are some people who have genuine wealth. There are some people who buy these cars outright. There's some people who can afford the two, three, four, £5,000 holiday. There's some people who can afford the £2,000 jacket, right, that you see in these luxury shops. But a lot of these people can't. They just can't afford it. Most of the wealth that you see about, guys, is not real. It's fake. It's from people who do not have the money and spend that money to essentially flex, to show off. Now, why is this? Well, I think it's because we have seen a large push recently towards, well, not even recently, but over the past couple of decades, perhaps, to consumerism. And now it's getting to a ridiculous point. I'll give you the example of the cars. And I think this is a very easy one to understand. You buy a brand new car for maybe £30,000. And anyone knows this. This is not news, especially if it's a luxury car, mainly if it's a German car. Within 5 years, that £50,000 car is like 10,000, 20,000. This is just the case. It's really obvious. It's easy to see. Just go on Auto Trader or anything, right? At the same time as it losing value, it has repair bills. I would actually argue that these brand new German premium cars are worse than my car on a mechanical level, on a reliability level, on a cost level. That's for sure. People buy worse products with better names. I'll take the new iPhone for a very clear example. I know it's got a different design, but I'm seeing the reviews that are coming out and it seems to actually be worse. I'm sure it's faster, but it seems to be breaking all the time. It looks just the same as the last one. I think it looks worse, actually. But guess what? You'll still see people lining up, and it'll still probably be the best-selling version ever. Because people have fallen for the trap. And this does tie very well into what I'm speaking about, because not only have people fallen for hyper-consumerism, they've fallen for buying products which aren't good. Like, if you're going to hyper-consume a product, especially me, right? And now maybe I'm just, old at heart or boring, whatever. But when I'm buying a product, I genuinely map out whether it's cost effective. If it's not cost effective, I map out whether I actually will enjoy the product enough to make it valuable to me. I look into how good the product is. I look into the functionality of the product in my own life. And I'm not saying that makes me better at these sorts of things than anybody else, but it means that you've got to do your research and you make more informed and better decisions. Now, it's actually quite funny. to me. Because not only do you see all of this wealth being fake, the asinine conflation between having these luxury goods and being wealthy couldn't be further from the reality. And this is exceptionally easy for anybody to understand. Now, the people who will be paying, let's say, the £300-400 a month for the Mercedes-Benz that I was just speaking about, won't be investing. And then I hear from the same sort of people that investing is risky. You might lose your money. Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. If you're buying a brand new car, and it's not a rare hypercar or a supercar, if you're buying a standard BMW, you're going to lose money. Definitely. Right? No if, buts, or maybe. You're paying fuel, you're paying financing, you're paying repairs, and a big one which most people do not seem to factor in as a genuine cost, you are paying for depreciation. And depending on the vehicle, depending on the phone especially, right, that's going down in value for sure. Depending on the used jacket, because once it's used, it's not going to be valuable anymore. It's going to wear out. You're losing money anyway. So my point here is, the people who will talk about losing value are losing the most value. It doesn't make any sense. And this ties back to investing being risky, okay? Because let's assume it is. Let's assume you've got a 50-50 chance of losing all of your money. And if you're investing properly, that's probably quite slim. But let's just assume it's the case for a second. If you have a 50-50% chance of losing all of your money, but realistically that chance is slimmer if you're doing things well, let's say you have a 50-50 chance of losing 50% of your money. Guys, you're going to be losing that money on that car anyway. And I say car as the main standout because, well, it's the most expensive and easiest to understand one. Now, you get 3-4 years down the line and that vehicle's worthless, or worth very little, comparatively to what you bought it for at the very least. It's now costing more to maintain because it's old, it's broken down, right? If you'd have just put that money into a simple investment fund, index fund, pension, whatever you want to call it, right? Anything at this point, right? You will have genuine wealth. Because you will have money which is building money for you. You will have money which you can call on a bad time and a rainy day. Again, if you're putting the same money down as you're putting down for one of these cars, you might have 30, 40, 50,000 in the bank. Buy a cheap old car, do what I did, right? I love my car a lot. But realistically, over the course of 2 years, it might have cost me 3,000-4,000 to maintain and buy, right? And buy. You don't want to be wasting this money. And it's actually quite funny because to tie this video full circle, as I always try and do, I always used to think, and this is until relatively recently to be honest, that it was people like me in the wrong. Because to give you a bit of context on me, you might be watching this video for the first time, right? I own my own businesses and I use most of that money to invest. And that doesn't necessarily mean what you may think. I don't just invest in the stock market or crypto or gold. A lot of the investing that I do is back into my own businesses. For example, I would consider making this video an investment of time. It might get 1,000 views, might get 2,000 views, might make me some money. I might invest in some software for other YouTube channels of mine or other projects. Or I might invest in the stock market. Gold, silver, crypto, you know. But fortunately for me, I do have that money that I can call on in a rainy day. But it's not fortune, because that implies it's a luck of the draw. And it absolutely isn't, guys. It's as simple as understanding that most people's wealth that you see around is fake. They're going into debt for luxury goods that they don't need, can't afford, and will lose value over time. It's ridiculous. But we've been so trained into buying this stuff, consuming this crap, and it is crap. It's not useful. It's not good either in a lot of instances. That we think this is the way to live. And anybody who lives outside of that seems to be doing things wrong. But in 3 or 4 years, these people will have saved no extra money. They could have had 30. And this is the thing, right? just to kind of sum this up, the same people will say it's impossible to save 300 or 400 for a retirement account or investments or even savings just to have cash on hand, which is always handy and useful. Well, if you cut that car payment, that £100 a month mobile phone bill, and all of these other luxuries, that might not be an issue anymore. It comes down to personal responsibility, guys. It comes down to an understanding that consumerism is absolutely rampant and you just don't need most of these things. Well, with that being said, that's all I've got to say here. So thank you for watching, and I do hope I'll see you again soon.